We don't need the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and people like them telling us what to do.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, fiat money breeds total control for those who issue the currency. I had an interview with Kerry Lutz. He interviewed me the other day, and I wanted to remind him and the audience listening to that, too, that for those who still aren't getting it, it's exactly what Amschel Mayer Rothschild stated in 1883. Give me control of a nation's money, and I care not who makes the laws. And that's what we're up against here. And that's why candidates like Ron Paul or Rand Paul or anybody else who will stand up for the Constitution like Judge Napolitano are so critical. I mean, that's what's so inspiring about this movement, this liberty movement, Bob, is it's people waking up, looking back to history, looking back to our founding fathers for guidance, looking back to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and saying anybody that would trample on the Constitution and the Bill of Rights is our enemy, and anybody that would stand in support of it is our ally. And that's why the people are coming together, because those of us who do know history are getting damn outraged at this point.
And we're also putting our head in the noose. And we know that. Me, I don't care. I'm old. You do care. You're young. But we are taking tremendous chances.
Well,
because they may try to come after us. But I don't know that anybody would want to pick them up. It would be funny if they sent the military to pick me up, and when they got there and they saw it was me, and they said, "Oh, I know this guy. I listen to him all the time on the radio. He's great. I ain't going to pick this guy up." Or the group of soldiers that go to a house, they go into a whole bunch of houses, picking up people, and they go to this house, and the sergeant gets out of the truck and says, "Hey, my mom and dad live here. We're not going to take them out of there." And the other soldiers say, "No, we're not. And as a matter of fact, let's let all these other people go." And that's the way it's going to happen.
Yeah, well, in my case, I don't have an ego big enough to think that I could be a target of this government. There's bigger fish to fry. I mean, here's my skin in the game. I have 4 children, Bob. That's why I want to speak out, because I have always made the point that if everybody who knows speaks out, then it's no longer scary to speak out. It's scary for the government to try to oppress us, because when we're in the millions, and take a look at the Ron Paul Revolution. Everybody in support of Ron Paul, darn near everybody, now knows about the Federal Reserve and the unconstitutional 1913 enactment of the Federal Reserve System. And those who know that information, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, as my friend SJB likes to say. The genie's out of the bottle. So the Rothschilds are no longer hiding behind the curtain, neither are the Rockefellers, and all they have now is overt tyrannical power, which will slip through their fingers like sand. Because when we are awake and we know the truth, that's the end game. They can't take us all. If they start black-bagging me or anybody else, that's when this thing goes crazy. That's when people start marching in the streets, because there's no way they can black-bag all of us and have the people stand down.
Well, I think that's an extremely good point. Exposure. And, that's why I wasn't very surprised a couple of years ago when we received a request to be a subscriber, and the name of the company and the phone and all that stuff, from the Rothschilds in London.
You're kidding me.
No, I'm not kidding you. I don't make these stories up.
Well, that's part of their intelligence network. They want to know what the enemy's up to.
Well, they should have went to the Beltway. They could have got it for nothing. The idea is to win the battle. And where I'm going, they don't use money. So I'm not too concerned about that.
Let me ask you this, because I bet it's come up on other calls, and I have not been reporting on this at SGT Report because I'm a skeptic. There's a fella in Japan who used to be the bureau chief for Forbes magazine. His name is Benjamin Fulford. Ben Fulford does have connections. He has interviewed David Rockefeller, and you know how difficult an interview that would be to get. And he interviewed Rockefeller just a few years ago, and this is post his position at Forbes. And Ben Fulford is saying that there is a reworking of the international system that will be far more equitable for humanity than what we're currently facing. And as you and I both know, anything would be more equitable for humanity than this nightmare we're currently facing. Do you have any information that would help those of us who are following that story on the periphery and who are very skeptical of it, but do very much appreciate the hope that gives us, that countries are coming together behind the scenes to try to fight this thing? Do you want to weigh in on that at all?
Oh, sure. I have the same skepticism that others have. How do you get access to David Rockefeller?
He did interview him, though. It's on YouTube.
I know that, but how did that happen? It's almost impossible for that to happen unless you're on the inside, or unless they want the story out. Second of all, I'm not too sure about the involvement of the Chinese and their tongues. And number three, it's my opinion, and I've lived through this, that the gold that started to come out of the caves, so to speak, in the Philippines began right after the end of the Second World War. And, of course, the man that ended up running the Philippines for so long got filthy rich, and that's how he got rich. They said it was selling used equipment after the war, and that certainly wasn't the case. But it's called Yamashita's treasure. And what the Japanese did, they stole everything they could get their hands on during the 1930s, and they put it in the Philippines. It wasn't only gold and silver. It was heirlooms and precious things from centuries, antiquities. And most of that stuff, we'll call it stuff because it was a conglomeration of things, was liquidated by the early 1990s, if not by mid-1990s. In fact, that's one of the reasons that Barrick Gold was set up, which is nothing more than a subsidiary than the Central Intelligence Agency. And they admitted that much in court when they said you couldn't adjudicate against us because we were working for the government. And so that's how they laundered some of the gold that was left. But I think that gold's all gone. I think it's been sold by the Japanese government as well as the OSS, which is now the CIA. And that's part of what they talk about. And I don't think that gold overhang existed because they used it to, in Japan, stay in power with their two-party system, which is aided and abetted by the U.S. government still today.
But let me ask you this as it pertains to Ben Fulford. Ben Fulford has been very, very public all over the Internet, espousing his hatred for the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, this criminal system. He's spoken out against it endlessly and overtly, and he doesn't mince words. So my fear as a skeptic, as is yours, is that, if you got an interview with David Rockefeller, maybe it's mis- or disinformation of some sort. But the more we hear him speak, and the more the rage bubbles to the surface, the rage that we all share, those of us who are informed, the more I think that he is actually speaking truth. I just hope that we're getting the big picture. I hope that the picture he's sharing is accurate.
Well, I do too. And it's as simple as that. And we'll just have to wait and see and look at it with a professional eye. I think that's the best way to put it.
Okay, well, I just wanted to touch on that because many people email me the articles coming from David Wilcox and coming from Ben Fulford about this plan, about countries coming together to essentially stand against this banking empire. I'm not sure what you'd call it. But I just want to address it because we are following it, and I do think Ben Fulford is a stand-up guy, and there's a lot of things about him I admire, and I just wanted to touch on it with you. So I'm glad to hear that you're not dismissing it out of hand as being disinfo.
No, I just got to see more proof, and I don't know how he can do that, but let's hope he can, and let's hope it's all correct, and let's hope he's right. And, when you're at this as many years as I have, and people appear and kind of from out of nowhere, even though he was a journalist, you got to say to yourself, well, where's this guy coming from? I mean, I've seen so many change agents in 54 years that, believe me, lots of them.
Let me ask you this, too, before we let you go. It just popped into my head. I've been meaning to ask you about it for a long time, and I think it's worthy of talking about since Ben Fulford does live in Japan. Do you think that Japan, the tsunami and the event that hit it, the earthquake, do you think that was done on purpose? Do you think that they were targeted by a weapon, either nuclear weapons planted offshore, some sort of seismic weapons planted offshore, or by HAARP? Because there's a lot of evidence stacking up that suggests that is the case and that earthquake was not a natural event.
I don't think the earthquake was a natural event. I think it was done by the United States for whatever reason, and it's just like this German thing. It could have been planned 5 years ago, and we're just finding out about it. And it's the same thing with the Japanese. Maybe they have gone a way that the U.S. didn't want them to. In the process now, what's happened, we've got this nuclear fallout. It may destroy the entire nation. And I think it's pretty dangerous living in Japan today because of that. In fact, the whole world is being affected by it. But these people don't care who do these kind of things. They just don't care. And it's that non-caring that everybody's expendable except them, that from the very beginning I recognized it and wouldn't go to work for them. And because I knew what they were up to. And this was a gang that was run within the government that was worse than the mafia could ever think of being. And I don't want any part of that.
Isn't it amazing, too? I used to work for a Fortune 50 company for about 10 years, and, in an organization like that, it was actually one of the only Fortune 50 companies that I could possibly see myself working for from a philosophical standpoint. But the point is that isn't it amazing that the biggest corporation on the face of the planet with a $550 billion annual budget is the Pentagon, and their job is to wage war? I mean, it's no wonder that we're up against the wall, both in this country and, across the globe, because the Pentagon, which is tasked and should be tasked with defending the borders of this country, is instead engaged in overt wars of offense, unconstitutional wars. And it's just disgusting. We need people in the Pentagon to stand up too, and I don't know how that works though when you have a top-down structure like that. People just take the orders and do what they're told.
How about coming from the bottom up? The field grade officers, the junior officers, the sergeants, they're the ones who can really change things. I mean, they can surround the Pentagon and say the game's over.
Yeah.
We're not going to shoot you or anything, but we don't want you to stop what you're doing. And if you don't do that, then we will shoot you.
Well, I interviewed some young military men for a Ron Paul video that I did recently, and they were at the Ron Paul event in support of the one constitutional candidate who stands for you and me in the Constitution. That's Ron Paul. And one of the young men I interviewed said something just perfect. He said, "We believe that we should be here with all guns pointed outward."
And why do you support Ron Paul?
Because we support the Constitution, personal liberty, freedom. Well, the military.
And how do you feel about these wars?
We'll do it.
Well, what can you say on the record about Ron Paul and his position on ending these wars?
Well, we agree that we shouldn't be. Yeah, we agree we shouldn't be the world police, but if there's a mission to do, we'll do it.
We fight for our country. We're patriots, but we believe that we should protect our country, and obviously we're doing no one any service. I have friends who've died over in Iraq because of this. We should be here with all guns pointed outwards.
And that's the hope for the next generation. That's the hope for the future. That's the hope for tomorrow, is that young guys like that, and there was 4 or 5 of them, Bob, all with shaved heads, all standing proud for the Constitution, all saying that they were there in support of Ron Paul because of wanting to defend the Constitution, because of wanting to defend liberty, and those guys saying that the goal should be for the military to be here at home with all guns pointed outwards. That's the hope. That's our hope.
I see that. I see that every Thursday on the Marine Disquisition. And you're absolutely correct. And it's heartbreaking what I've seen men go through since 1939, and the modern sense of things. There was a World War II, and then Korea and Vietnam, and the first Gulf War, and then Iraq, and on and on and on. It's crazy. And whose kids get killed? Yours and mine.
Well, as I said, I have 4 children, and 3 of them are boys, and none of them will go and fight in these unconstitutional wars of aggression. Now, if the Chinese or some other mystery, if NATO wanted to come in and try to take what I have from me and take what my neighbor has from him, me and my boys will stand up and fight.
That's why I started training my children at 4 years old. By the time they were 8, they could shoot somebody at 1,000 yards.
But I will not send my sons to die in a war for Henry Kissinger, who thinks they're trash. Right. I will not do it. And if more
Finally,
people...
the right and the left have come together. Americans are Americans. They're not Democrats or Republicans or liberals or conservatives. They're American citizens, and we should all be working toward the same goal. And we are, finally. And it took me 50 years of working at it with guys like G. Edward Griffin and Gary Allen and Alan Stang and Anthony Hilder. We come up with those ideas over 50 years ago. But quite frankly, we didn't quite know how to make them work, and they are working now, and thank goodness.
Well, thank goodness for people like you too, Bob. You're reaching a lot of people. And as we part, Bob, I just want to again thank everybody for listening. We still have our Second Amendment rights, but more importantly, we have our First Amendment rights, the most important amendment, our ability to speak out against this nightmarish system. So everybody, please do it. Stand up for truth, stand up for liberty, and speak out while we still can. Bob, thanks so much, and we look forward to speaking with you again soon, sir.
Well, thank you very much for having me here, and thank you all for listening.